if you play the long game and you don't make short-term sacrifices and everything you do isn't built on only one race, and if you're a coach, if you're working with an athlete, you should work with the athlete for the long term. You should be in a relationship with the athlete. You shouldn't be in a relationship with a race.
Good morning, buddy.
Hey, happy Thursday. Man,
Man.
I'm just glad you're here, man. Dude, the other day, the other day was a little unsettling. We'll go into that in a second, but yeah, welcome aboard, Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 353. Is that correct?
It is correct.
353? Yeah. 353 podcasts, over 1 million downloads, over 400 5-star reviews for your friendly duo. At least we try to be. We try to be friendly, we try to be open and honest. We discuss it all. We discuss all things triathlon. We cover races, race recaps. We cover things you should know about training. We cover stories from our athletes. Oftentimes, we also do questions from our closed Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group if you want to search that on Facebook. And then for the most part, we just have an open, honest discussion with no sponsors, no ads, about things that are on our mind, things that are on our athletes' mind, and things that we hopefully feel will be beneficial to you in your life and in your training, as we all do this as a hobby, and oftentimes triathlon and our training, and sometimes our obsession with the sport and getting things in and trying to weave in and out of and navigate life and how everything impacts each other. We try to do a better, or help you do a better job of navigating that ship. So appreciate you joining us. We know there are a lot of triathlon podcasts out there, and we know your time is valuable. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Yep, I would just like to echo what you said right there.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
No problem. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. It's you and my wife are so much alike in a lot of ways, because she'd be like, so, like, we'll try to sit down and have like a real in-depth conversation. She's like, well, why don't you go first? Why don't you tell me how you feel? And like, me, like, I could get kind of long-winded and I'm all up in my feels, and I'll talk for like 3 or 4 minutes and I'll get done, and she'd be like, yeah, I feel the same. I'm like, what do you mean you feel the same? You can't say that. I just kind of laid it on. I need something from you. Like, I need more than just the affirmation of, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I need some.
She's using your own medicine on you.
I know, man. You're ditching it right back to me. But yeah, I'm here in Chattanooga. Mike is in Nashville, which, if you watch any of the news or follow it, which I don't really actually recommend, but most people do. Nashville got hit pretty handily with some nasty weather and tornadoes, which I think was over Monday night.
Yeah.
And we had quite a few athletes impacted. I know you were kind of right there in the heart of the storm. Luckily, came out unscathed. I know we had a lot of athletes we have a lot of athletes in East Nashville that were Chris Sisk is one of our athletes. He was kind of showing some pictures to me of the destruction, that he just got lucky. He just said, I just flat out got lucky. We weren't prepared. We weren't ready. We just got lucky. And then one of our club members from this last year, he showed me a picture of his house, and it's crazy, man. It is Mother Nature's power is. We don't need reminders, but when we do, it's usually a hard one.
Yeah, it was Monday night. It was, you don't expect a tornado on a Monday night, right? I guess you don't know, but
I mean, you don't know.
But my dog was acting a little weird all night, and they are just incredible at that. And I heard that from several people, that the dog was sort of their warning. They just kept kind of, hanging around and whining, and there was some weird, indications. It was one of those still nights for sure. I was just laying in bed. It was kind of warm. I had the window open, and it started raining and storming a little bit, and I just was kind of listening, and the sirens just started going off after midnight. And look, there's a lot of storms. Since I moved here, we don't have tornadoes back in Wisconsin, really. I mean, we had a few when I was growing up, but it wasn't really like that. But when I moved here and I started working for the news, and I was here a week once, and our weather team started freaking out about tornadoes. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever, I'm going home.
Yeah, that's right.
I live downtown Nashville, and on that 8th floor, and I was just at home kind of after work, kind of hanging out, and that storm scared the crap out of me. So this area is pretty notorious for tornadoes. I think it's something to do with like being in a vat or in a bowl.
Yeah, downtown especially has gotten
Yeah,
hit
it's been nailed.
multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, so the last few days I've been kind of out riding around, and it really did, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of stuff like this going on, and everybody kind of like posts everything, so it seems overwhelming. But it was pretty bad, and I was about 2 miles from where the path was, which is not far. But it's so crazy to think that, like, I had two friends, that Patrick and another friend Scott, who were right on the path, and their side of the street got demolished, and the people across the street didn't really hardly
Nothing.
get nothing.
It's
It's
crazy.
so precise,
Right.
and Patrick lost his whole roof. I mean, I was over there. I told him the story. He said he huddled it. He's got one of those center fireplaces in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
the room. He kind of like tucked in behind it on the side the opposite side of where the storm was coming, grabbed his dog, and they were just kind of right there. He said it was like a 20-minute, hellstorm, and it just was dead silent afterwards. And
Mm-hmm.
all he heard was a leak. And he walked into it was like his spare room, and he put a bucket under the leak, and he kind of like looked around, and everything seemed cool. And he walked outside and he looked at his neighbors. Everybody said, hey, I'm okay. And he looked up at his roof, and the whole thing was gone. He
God.
thought all he had was like a leaky, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, and it's just rain coming in through and not having a roof.
Yeah, but without laboring on it, it was it's pretty amazing to see that. I don't want to go into that on this podcast, but
Hey, man, it's
yes,
everyday life. I mean, it's
yeah,
not everyday life, but I mean, these kind of things come up in life, and we don't want them to come up, but they do, and I think it's just kind of a I think it's just, I mean, it is. It's hard. We often get like harsh reminders from like the universe, or Mother Nature, or just, life itself of how often we're not in control. And then about 10 minutes later, we go back to feeling like we're in control, and we can plan everything out, and we got things like totally going, the way we need to go. But yeah, it's, hey, just glad you're okay. I fielded, like 9,000 text messages that morning. Have you heard from Mike? 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 Have you heard
I
from Mike? Have you heard
know.
from Mike? I text him. He's not awake. I'm like, dude, it's 8:50. Even if there wasn't a tornado, this is not the time to go do well checks. I mean, it's like, give the man some space. Like, Allie's sister Jay lives in Hermitage, and that's where they live, is like a street down from where we used to live. And they got hit. Like the Kroger that we always that are shopping at, which is like 2 miles away from our house, got hit hard too. And so we were checking on them, and she didn't answer. And then when she got back, she was like, "Yeah, we were up till like 3 a.m." And so
Yeah,
we didn't. But I was like, guys, first of all, even if nothing had happened, it's still a little bit early. I mean, podcast days are like our early rise. It's just early, so let's just be patient and let's wait a minute. But I'll be honest, man, there was a few minutes where I was like, man, what if something did happen to him? Like, we're gonna have to start opening up. I'm gonna have to do like some casting calls for the new my new co-host of the Christian Iron podcast.
I know,
And
dude.
how's that
Well,
gonna go? They're gonna pick up the slack and be able to put up with me, which is no easy task. And they'll have to get down to yeah, man. And I mean, there's not many people out there that can do what you do.
yeah, can you say yeah, man?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, but it was funny because you saw a lot of pictures before. I went to bed, man, and the sirens went off, nothing happened here, and I didn't even think about it really. And then you said you saw a bunch of pictures, and you know where that is in relation to my house.
I know.
And
Well,
and that's I can
like
see
the
why you
five
would have.
points. Well, I mean, I don't know what happened to Calypso Cafe, but I
That
mean,
was our
that's like
joint.
right. That's where you and I met, and it's like not even a half mile from like where the tornado really hit there in 5 points. In like a block, and like not even a block, but like two places down from Three Crow, which is where Allie and I met. I don't even know if that place is still standing, but um, that place is resilient. I'm sure it's still standing.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it
it was a
really
little bit of it was
it
a little
was
bit of
weird how it bounced around. The Calypso's fine. I think Three Crows fine, but like two buildings down is demolished. So
right.
it
Yeah,
was weird, man.
it's bad. It
It
is
was so
weird. But
weird.
hey, We'll get off
Oh,
the crushing iron weathercast and Mother Nature's fury and get into more things triathlon and endurance related. I appreciate your patience as always. But this is kind of how we roll. We kind of open it up, and I gotta say that's one of like my favorite things that we still get is that when people like hop into our Facebook group and they answer what they like about the podcast, they say they feel like I'm just sitting in the same room with a bunch of buddies, and I love that. That's how we want it. To be, a place and a podcast where you can feel comfortable taking in the knowledge, soaking it in, being a part of the conversation, and having us feel like we're on the same level with you. Because we are. We're still in the sport. We're still trying to figure things out. Even though we're both coaches and athletes, we've been through a lot, and we work with a lot of people. We're there with you. We're still living life. We still go through the same obstacles and hardships that you do, and I think that's one of my favorite things about the podcast. But I've got a couple topics for today. I didn't know if you had any that were spurred on by such a life event, but first, and before we get into that, and this might actually be a small reminder for you, happy birthday to both of our mothers.
yes.
Yeah, it is.
Incredible.
It is. It is kind of an incredible coincidence that you and I's moms both had the same birthday. But yeah, today, March 5th, I think they both turn what? 49, 50,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, they're both spring chickens, but
My
and
mom
looking
is
as
almost younger than me.
beautiful and that's right, it's almost younger than you. But yeah, happy birthday to Ann Raleigh and happy birthday to Lisa Bruce. Without them, there would not be this podcast. But hey, getting into more triathlon specific things. I got a few, like I said, but if you have any that you're feeling or you have meditated on, let me know before we hop
Dude,
in.
you don't even want to get into that. I went
I
to a
know,
mindful
right?
group last night, but
Okay. Yeah, yeah. All
no, no,
right.
I'm not going to
Back.
go that. But I have an idea for a new segment,
Okay. Hit me with it.
and then I just wanted to run it by you. I was thinking about, I want to call it the pulse of our Facebook group.
The pulse of our Facebook group. Can we do that at the end of the cast so we don't scare people off, or do you want to do it right now?
No, let's go into your topic if you got a couple topics.
I've
But
got.
I wouldn't mind doing this because it's basically just kind of more or less bringing up the questions that were stated in there, or what people are talking about, just to give an
Yeah,
idea. So if you want to go
all right.
into our Facebook group, Crushing Iron Group, and Robbie, you already mentioned that, but there's a lot of good conversation going on there. So I just thought I would, because it's something people posted, and I just was kind of going to get your feedback on a couple things. But
Well, you know what? Let's start with that because listen, the two that I had today was one. It was a I wanted to address and kind of talk through the effect that positive stress has on our life.
okay,
I think a lot of times we even have a podcast, I think, just kind of strictly dedicated to stress. But I think one of the things that we have a hard time wrapping our mind around is positive stress because they kind of seem like polar opposites. Like, oh, how could stress be positive? But we've talked about this before. When people switch jobs, like you've been in a job for a very long time, but you hate it, that's a negative stress. When you leave that job to go to a new job, a better job, pays more, better quality of life, not, a toxic work environment, guess what? That's still stress because your routine is changing, your work environment is changing, your expectations are changing, your hours might be changing. Those are all stressors. But they're good and they're positive to your life. But a lot of times we find or we fail to recognize the impact that might have on our energy levels or our focus or our motivation. You also look at things like, you're maybe you've been single for a long period of time and then you get into a relationship and it's a great relationship and everything is thriving and things are going really well. Well, guess what? That's also stress because it takes energy, it takes time,
oh,
it takes
this is
effort, it's boy does it take effort. And
jeez.
so again, that's positive stress. And so and I got to thinking about that because I had a conversation yesterday with an athlete of mine that is going through or has, as you say, going through positive stress like it's a bad thing, but just has a whole lot of positive stress going on and is having kind of a hard time balancing why they feel a specific way and kind of beating themselves up about not getting some workouts and not being as good as they need to. So it was either positive stress, and we can cover that topic. I think it's a really good one actually. But then I also have I love kind of starting off the season with a few taper podcasts in terms of how to construct your taper, how to execute your taper, what to look for, what to shed, what to keep on, because a lot of athletes have different definitions or approaches to tapering. A lot of people just get flat out lazy, and they hear taper, they hear rest, and that's not how you should look at it. Tapering should be peaking. It should be getting crisp. It should making sure you're light on your feet. You feel some snap in your legs. You're ready to go. And we have I got an athlete. We have an athlete doing 70.3, or Puerto Rico 70.3 here in just over a week. And so we've just kind of been diving in with him, going through our first taper together and asking questions. So I thought that could be a good one. I know it's two loaded topics. We can go either way. I'm good with whatever. And don't say we can do both, because that we're not. We're just going to go on one, and then next thing you know, it's going to be an hour in, and we're done with the podcast.
Yeah, let's do them. Let's do a 3-hour cast today.
I don't know if I've got that in me today.
No,
So yeah, either one of those, or we can do your Facebook one first. Now that we're 20 minutes into the podcast and really haven't discussed anything yet.
Yes, we have, man.
15 minutes. So it's not bad.
Well, you want to kind of play through this a little bit and see if one of them starts popping out.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how we do it. The first thing the first comment here, I wanted to go into was, it's from David Stankard, and it's about Garmin, because I get this a lot from people, like that whole recovery 72 hours or whatever after that, or those kind of questions, and I think that might be a relevant question for a lot of people, and I don't know how much you've thought about it, or if you have thoughts on it, but he said Garmin evidently doesn't recognize the value of zone 2 workouts, and he posted a graphic that said unproductive. It looks like your load is too focused on low intensity activities.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that's kind of a good.
Well, I mean, this is going to be a short
people
one.
don't understand. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Your Garmin is full of crap. Okay, anytime.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, this is like a fact or fiction podcast. Like, what your Garmin tells you is absolute, total garbage. I don't ever look at it. I mean, I totally disregard. And the same thing can go with, like, if you're wearing a heart rate. First, I think your wrist-based heart rate is absolute trash. I think if you're going to go heart rate at all, you should definitely go with the old school heart rate strap. I think those have been and will continue to be the gold standard. But like if I'm wearing a heart rate strap for some reason, and I go out for a run, and like within the first 5 minutes, your Garmin will oftentimes do like a systems check, and it'll be like, it'll send you like, fatigue level poor, or performance level in the green, like +5. And it really has no idea what's going on, because I've messed with it before, and I've got, where there's like this giant hill. And what it does is it takes your pace and it takes your heart rate, and it marries them together based on what it sees or knows as your previous zones, which most people don't even have their zones set up in Garmin. They either don't know how to set them up, or they just go on the factory settings, so they go by that, or they have no idea how to test for it, and they're already off. But so what it does is it takes your usual heart rate and then your usual pace, and then if it's a faster pace with a lower heart rate, it's going to tell you, oh, performance, condition positive, like +4. Or if you're on the other side, if it says like, -3, performance condition poor, it's because your heart rate's probably higher and your pace is lower. Well, I've done a simple test on this, and what I've done is I've started it, and I've ran down my hill, and then taken a little more of like a flat route for the first 5 minutes, where my speed is a little bit higher. My heart rate's obviously a lot lower because you're going downhill, and it's like performance condition excellent +5. And so you're thinking, oh baby, I got it today. And all you've really done is basically run downhill for 5 minutes, and now you've told yourself that my Garmin has told me that I'm about to perform excellent today. And then you get into your real run, and you're like, my Garmin lies. Or what I've done before is I've not started. I've walked down my hill. Then I started it. I ran 2 minutes out, and then I tried to run up that gigantic hill we have going into my house.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes in, it says performance condition poor, like -6. It has got nothing to do with how you actually feel that day. And we've talked about this on so many different occasions about why I hate looking at your watch, because I feel like it drives your train, your fitness train, how you're feeling that day, and it just messes with your brain. It can really, affect, and you can kind of have these phantom, pains, or these phantom feels that, this feels great based on what your watch says, the pace says, a heart rate says. You're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be running this fast, but oh my God, I'm actually running this fast and it feels fine. Maybe I should just continue on. But no, the Garmin, like, you're going to need 72 hours to recover. I'm like, don't tell me how much I need to recover. Like, I'm pretty good at reading my body. I don't need this. I think I've done some long runs that have been like, please take 3 weeks off. And you're like, no. And then you get people that, finish Ironman and they're sitting there in the tent eating their pizza and their Garmin's like, you need to get up and move. Because you've been inactive for like an hour. It's totally trash. Don't worry about it. Take it all off your screen. It's just way too much and it's not even accurate.
All right. Should we keep going on this?
Just keep
Or?
going, baby. Just keep feeling it, or you keep
All
going.
right.
I'll keep.
The next one is it was a post by Matt Ricketts about best bike split. That website.
So yeah, Ricketts would post something like that. Go ahead.
But he says that this is he found a use for best bike split that even you, coach, would
Yeah, obviously,
approve of.
I haven't seen this, nor have I condoned it. So let me pull up Facebook. Yeah,
He
you got
said you
to
can
like.
download profiles of the course based on your power profile you set to create workouts in Zwift, Garmin, Trainer Road, etc.
It says it says anyway, he's talking about if you're not familiar, Best Bike Split is a website and kind of a platform where you can go in, you can plug in your personal data like your height, your weight, your aero position, your level of kind of not level of fitness, but your level of aggressiveness on the bike, what kind of athlete you are, your bike, its weight, what kind of front end it has, because a TT bike, is it a road bike, what kind of wheels do you have, and then what kind of power do you have, and what kind of power plane are you know going to have on race day. And then it takes previously downloaded courses that have been certified through the majority of them are like challenge courses or 70.3 Ironman courses from Ironman races. And then what it does is it takes all of your data and then spits out a number, basically telling you this is how long it's going to take you to do this right. And I've seen some people say that it could be anywhere from it even if you, I think if you have like an upgraded version, it even takes into account the weather. Like if there's going to be, it's going to be really, it takes
Yeah.
into account pavement. Like what kind of pavement is it? Is it rough? Is it rough asphalt? Is it something like, Wisconsin pavement, or is it something like, Muncie or Ohio 70.3, where it's like pristine, freshly paved, which is going to make a difference on your time. It takes all that into account and then spits out like this number of, you're going to do a 235 bike split, and it shows like what your watts are going to be, what your intensity factor is going to be. And then it can even spit out like a pacing plan for that I find just way too much stuff going on. But it does have, you can actually, take the how you want to pace it versus, like if you want to race at 60, 65, 70, 75, 80%, whatever, of your total power, which is your intensity factor, your percentage. Based on that, it'll kind of give you an idea of that. I think it's a little overkill, but Ricketts, just because I know him personally, is a big like data junkie, and so he probably is like, this is like a birthday party for him. This is fine. I mean, I don't think it's great. I don't know that I would approve of it. I think I'm just kind of lukewarm on it. I think I think there is a lot to be said for pre-riding the course, which you can do, which this gives you the opportunity to quote unquote, well, let me rephrase, you're not pre-riding the course. You're getting a pre-visual of the course. I hate it when like, oh, well, it mimics the hills and it mimics this. I'm like, yeah, it changes the resistance. But if you want to really ride the course, go ride the course. It's like people telling me that they biked 80 miles inside. No, you didn't. You didn't go anywhere. So I know that might sound harsh, but you didn't go anywhere. You didn't go anywhere. You didn't bike 80 miles. You literally didn't move a foot. You got on your bike and you went. And for most athletes, the way they have things set up, it's based on their cadence, like that. That's how their speedometer, their cadence sensor, or their power. If we're on Swift, a power meter, it's based on your cadence. So if you do like a 95, 100 cadence with a super easy gear, you're going to be going to like 23, 24 miles an hour and you're spinning super easy. But if you slam it down in like a really huge gear and you're doing like a 50 cadence and you're putting out more power, it's going to be like you're going 15 miles an hour. It's for most people that are using it, the miles per hour is totally false, because you have no terrain, you have no turns, you have no headwind, you have no hills, you have nothing, no downhills, no turn, no nothing. So when you say you biked 80 miles inside, you didn't. You didn't even bike 8 inches. You were literally sitting on the bike. That's what do you
No, I know.
laughing
It's just
to?
hilarious.
Like you can't say that. Like you
Because
can't say I.
riding matters, like,
It
steering and
does if
things like
you
that.
really want to get out there. Like go ride it. Like that was I read the lady the woman, excuse me, who won the USA Olympic trials. I was reading like this huge thread that she wrote. Basically, she gave like the play-by-play of her entire like 2 days before, like, every thought that crossed her mind, every mile, and from like mile 16 and on, all she talked about was how was she had to remind herself to stay mindful. She had to keep practicing mindfulness, which is coincidentally a topic you and I covered on Monday. But
Yes,
she
it is.
was so focused on being mindful because she had to be prepared for. She couldn't get lazy with her focus because at any moment the race could change and people could go off running, and if she wasn't mindful, then she would miss it. And this just goes back to it. Like I think obviously if you can't get to a course and it's just impossible, I think it's helpful to help you visualize the course, but you're not riding the course if you're riding it inside your pain cave. You're not riding the course. You're inside your living room. You're not riding the course. It's totally, if you can go to a course and ride it, then for sure ride it. But you might get a better feel for the undulation, but you can also do that with just like looking at the course profile and think, all right, there are a lot of hills. Maybe I should just, throw it in the big gear and really work hard, or get out and mimic that on my outdoor ride. But no, you are not in fact riding the course if you're inside, your living room.
Yeah, I had it. I actually had that Molly Seidel note down here to talk about because I know that you were fascinated by her. That, well, how can you not be, right? The whole
I mean,
what
works like
she,
two jobs, working at a coffee shop, and she's like living like a post-college student just trying to make ends meet life, and here she goes with no marathon experience, rocking it and just crushing and beating all these other professional runners who have been had this as their goal and living it. Who probably a lot of them don't have, not a lot of them, but some of them don't have jobs. They have one job, and she goes out and smashes them.
yeah, and the thought I had, and you read that, I haven't read what you just were talking about, but my first thought when I read a little short thing, that one you posted, was that I kind of got the sense that she just was training. She wasn't like overly, well, she has a coach, so I don't know, maybe her workouts were super structured or whatever, but it sounds like she just likes, runs hills and just kind of goes after it and sort of feels it out. But maybe it's more,
Oh, I'm sure she had. I mean, I'm sure she had a fairly strict training regimen going in, but it sounded one of the things I took from it, since we're getting way off topic, um, was that she was very much in tune with her body in the lead up because she had such a huge injury history that they were kind of that in the middle of playing the long game, she found this short game race, which was the Olympic trials that that she just demolished. But she was only able to do that because she was playing the long game. Because like there was something there about, I'm not going to sacrifice 3 months for a 5K. And most people, when they're just focused on this one race, they will do things. You saw there were a lot of like last minute withdrawals from the Olympic trials, both men and women, because they got hurt and they just couldn't do it. But I thought it was very interesting that she was available. We talk about that a lot. We talk about, the statistics are like something like 85. If you complete 85 to 90% of your workouts and you're available to do them, then you're 7 times more likely to reach their performance goal. And just the fact, I just think it's so undersold that showing up healthy is gigantic. Like you're already up on a lot of the competition because a lot of them are going to be hurt or they're not going to be able to show up or they're going to be overtrained. Being fresh and showing up is you're already ahead of the game. And I feel like that was her. She was fresh because she was playing the long game because she didn't make sacrifices to do things that might hurt in the short term because she was chasing this exact date on the calendar, which is what so many athletes do. They act like their life is going to end and they're never going to race again after May 1st because that's when their race is. And I, throw caution to the wind and throw my body, to the wind. I don't really care what happens to it. I'm gonna run this injury into the ground. But I'm gonna show up on race day and it's gonna suck and I'm probably gonna do poorly, but I'm gonna show up because you know what? I gotta fill up that ego and I gotta make it happen. No, you can't. But the way she approached, it's just fascinating. I think it's such a healthy approach. It's an approach that we try our best to drive home to our athletes in terms of playing the long game, because if you play the long game and you don't make short-term sacrifices, and everything you do isn't built on only one race. And if you're a coach, if you're working with an athlete, you should work with the athlete for the long term. You should be in a relationship with the athlete. You shouldn't be in a relationship with a race. Because when you start to associate yourself and your relationship with either your coach or just yourself coach with a race, then you will sacrifice and make very poor decisions outside of that, because all you care about is that race. You cannot look, because you can't be objective. You cannot look past into what that might look like. You have to play the long game. But if you play the long game, you're going to get all these short-term opportunities, because you're going to be healthy, you're going to be fresh, you're going to be fit. In order to do that, you can't be hurt, you can't be overtrained, you can't be burnt out.
Boy, I really like that. From the beginning of my exploration of all this endurance sports stuff back in the day, the one thing always used to say is my goal was always just to feel my best
Mm-hmm.
at race day. And it wasn't even kind of hinged on this idea that I was talking about, being quote unquote in my best shape or any of that kind of business. I just wanted to wake up race day and feel, like you're saying, injury free, and just feel energized and what have you, and take my chances more than make sure that I got in all these, crazy workouts and stuff like that, which, I got most of them. I'm just saying that for me, it was more about like, okay, at a certain point, you have to kind of reconcile the idea that, okay, maybe, you're not going to be in the shape that you could be if you trained another year or something like that. You have to sort of be in the best physical feeling space as possible. It's so, you know what I mean? So it's like if you're
Mm-hmm.
if you're behind the eight ball a little bit at a certain point of your training, you can't make it up. Don't, it's not like doubling down and going twice as far just to make sure. It's almost like, well, it's back to what you always say. It's better to be undertrained than overtrained, really.
Well, I mean, that's not really, it is like you would, most professional triathletes tell you this too. I mean, I think we saw two like great examples of it this last year with the two Americans, Ben Hoffman and Tim O'Donnell. They both came in off of, I mean, if you like go back in time like 4 or 5 years ago, both of them, Ben wasn't married, but Tim was married to Rennie, but no kid. Ben wasn't married, and within the no kid, and had pretty good performances, but training more. And then this last year, biggest race of the year, Ironman World Championships, both married, both, I think Ben and his wife had just had a kid, both coming off injury setbacks, came in the race fit but super fresh. And you see this a ton, especially like, we talked about the Olympic training trial or the Olympic marathon trials. A lot of people show up and then they withdraw because they just realize that the niggle or the injury they've been pretending isn't there. They've been fighting off so hard. They just can't do it. They're just not going to. And professional athletes, like, they get hurt all the time. It's just because when you push the boundaries that much to reach that level of performance, you have to push the needle. It's not because they're improperly coached. It's not because they don't know how to train. It's because you're working with a clientele in a population that is so hardwired to be the best that they will oftentimes just numb out or ignore or tempt fate when it comes to, maybe I shouldn't run today, but if I, you know what, if I miss this session, somebody's not missing theirs, and they're going to be better than me on race day. Because, like, and I understand that the race format and what they're trying to do with winning the race, because for them it's winning. The time is irrelevant. As long as they're the first one across the finish line, that's all that matters. So I understand and have a good grasp on why that is different and why they have that mentality. But that's also why the Ironman World Championships every year, same with 70.3 Worlds, you see some of these big professional names a week or two out withdraw, because they've been trying to find a way to get to the start line through this injury, but still have enough confidence with their fitness that they can race. And every year at all these races, you see an athlete for them come out of the blue that's been battling injuries all year, but finally got healthy by not training as much, more than likely taking more time off, changing things up. Like I think Tim O'Donnell said, he basically didn't run until like a week or two before he was aqua jogging and just biking a ton. And then he goes out and rips it, on race day and just crushes people who have been dominating all year and probably putting in just insane, gigantic volume weeks. But we've one of our very first podcasts, one of the very first quotes I ever heard when I got into coaching that really stuck with me was, it's always better to be 100% undertrained than 1% overtrained. And so many athletes are obsessed with the overtraining because more is better and I have to check these boxes in order to tell myself I'm ready. But that's not the case. But that's our society. That's how we're wired now. We tell ourselves we need these things. We need more money. We need more material items. We need this. No, you don't. You just want it. Like the lines between need and want are so blurred now that I don't even think people really know what it is that they truly only need, because it's been, just muddied. The water's become so muddy between what you want and what you need. And now it's, well, don't tell me you didn't need to run an extra 30 minutes today. You just wanted to. You needed to, and a lot of that is like, we all have an ego. Every single person on this planet, the Pope has an ego. Everyone has an ego.
Yeah,
If you're
he's
on this
bad.
planet, you have an ego. But it's the people who have a grasp and they understand what their ego is doing, or the words that it says or that's trying to get across to you. They understand what it's trying to do and they just, either silence it or just don't agree with it or don't follow his actions. And that's one of those things that athletes do all the time, is they have this, I just needed to do this thing. No, you didn't. You didn't need to. You just wanted to. You wanted to fulfill the need of your ego to fulfill itself. And athletes are famous for getting themselves in trouble by just feeling like they needed to do this little bit extra, but it was just they just wanted to because they have an insecurity, they have or any other kind of mental, emotional, warfare that they have going on in terms of not feeling fast enough, not feeling good enough, not feeling fit enough. They have all these things they battle day in and day out, and those mind games play tricks on you. So the answer, Matt Ricketts, is that I kind of approve, but not really.
Uh, that need versus want thing. That the last few days for me, that's really been, I mean, that's one of the things that's come out of this tornado. Really, is I was helping my buddy clean up, and there's just stuff just spewing all over the yard, and there's just crap everywhere, and we were trying to separate piles and everything. I'm like, what about this? And he's like, yeah, kind of. I go, are you sure? Are you sure you want this thing or whatever it was? It was
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like a beat up piece of plastic that was like whatever. And he's like, yeah, you're right. So we just started getting this in this groove of simplifying and minimalism or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of that really applies to what we're doing. Like you're saying, it's like we don't need it. It's all about having energy and reserves and things like that, more so than being like checking all the boxes all the time when you're coming into a race. I mean, it's important. I mean, you have to be able to balance that, obviously, if you're in really good shape. And like, and that kind of goes back to the taper thing that you were talking about. It was like, if you're just like hitting taper and like, oh, thank God I can get to rest or whatever, that's not the
Mm-hmm.
point, right? You want to come into that thing being like, all right, I'm fresh right now, and I just need to like, what do you always talk about sharpening the sword and
Mm-hmm.
dialing in your little things at that point. And it's like, man, it's such a weird thing to train for 16 or 20 weeks and then hit a 3 week period where you're like ready just to kick back. But it's
And
it's not
most
race day
athletes,
on taper day.
no, but it's most athletes is they hate it because now they have extra time to do. Oh my God, I have to think. And now because like, let's be honest, a lot of us cling to training and cling to exercise and these experiences because it allows us to kind of disassociate from the daily, the daily obstacles and troubles that life has. Like, it allows us to kind of use fitness and our exploration of what we're capable of with all these endurance events to get our mind in a more positive place and work through things. It's, to me, it's kind of like being, when you're asleep and you dream and you do all these things with your subconscious. It's like it's your mind working itself out, working its way through things. And I think, I have no idea, I have no science to back this up, zero. But I feel like when you run or when you bike or when you swim, it is the exact same thing. You're just awake. It allows your mind to kind of take itself where it needs to go to work things out, but you're being active. And I don't, again, I have no science to back this up. I just know this from both personal experience and from more athletes than I can count that have said the same thing. Like they feel, you feel better. I mean, I know the science behind why you feel better when you get done running or training or doing something. Because I've never had somebody say, God, I really didn't want to do that run. I went out and ran, I worked through things, and I came back and oh man, I felt worse. No, most of us, I really needed that because it allows you to kind of rejuvenate your spirit and allows you to work things out in a way that's and express that through a higher heart rate or through kind of a meditative trance that especially running, can be obviously cycling is a little bit more difficult because you have to pay attention, especially if you're on the road. But swimming is the same thing. People say like I could if I could. I think we tried to invent this one. I haven't tried, but if you're out there and you want to kind of pitch in, I would love like a mental transcriber. If you could hook up a Bluetooth to my brain when I go swim, and then every thought that I have, if you could transcribe it, digitally to like your digital notepad that I could have, I would have written like 20 books by now. I'd probably have like 48 patents for things I've invented and solved like half the world's problem. That's what people do when they swim. Like their mind gets lost and they think through all these things, and that's why it's awesome. Because it's like you're awake while you're working through these things, and you're also doing something that's positive for your body. Um, but so I think it's one of those things where I have no idea how I got here.
I don't
By the way,
I don't know, but I
but
like it.
yeah, but I don't know what you said that got me on that topic, but
Taper.
that's taper. Yes, taper. Yeah, your mind and where it goes. But going back to the more specific part of taper, like when you are tapering, like that is like people think taper, they think lazy, they think total rest, and it's not about resting. It's about recovering, and those look very very different for especially for most people. Like what you should do if you're looking at your taper, and a lot of people, some people have like just way too long of a taper. You earn your taper. You earn it by the amount of fatigue and the amount of load and the amount of volume and the amount of intensity and the amount of stress you've been able to accumulate for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. That's what dictates the length of your taper. Like very, very few people to 100% need a 3 week taper. Like you just don't. It's 21 days. You're looking at like almost a month. No, you don't need that much. But it's also, I've had athletes do like 6 day tapers for Ironman. I've had athletes do like 2.5 weeks. But for like a 70.3, I'll use this gentleman as an example who's racing Puerto Rico is our first taper together, and I was kind of explaining what I'm looking for and why things are the way they are. And you'll see load is like total overall load is down, right? Because when you are allocating volume each week, when you allocate it with time, you're allocating stress. This is how much stress we have this week. What you want to do is you want to, yes, remove a little bit of intensity, but not at all. Most people shelve all intensity, period. Like they want it gone because, oh, I might get hurt, I might burn my biscuits, or I might get too sore, 2 weeks. I'm like, yesterday we did like a 20-minute easy warm up, 20-minute pretty hard like tempo effort, which is like zone 3 open marathon effort, and then a 10-minute easy cool down. Every other week, the week before, those runs would have been like an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. So what we're doing is keeping the intensity. We brought it down from like 35 to 20, so you're shoving off 15 minutes of intensity there, but we're also bringing total volume down. We did that again the day before. Instead of doing like an hour and a half on the bike with some intervals, he an hour on the bike with some intervals. So that were also less, and then he freaking rocked it yesterday and ran his second fastest 5K of all time in the middle of that 20-minute effort. Um, and honestly, if it was like a longer effort, he would have probably PR'd his 5K. But that's what you want. You want athletes to stay crisp, and you want athletes to keep that tension in their legs because you need that snap, you need that pop, especially, and that's why, and for a lot of reasons, I think 70.3 racing is so hard to get the taper right and to get the race right, because it is a distance you can race, because it's not so short. It's just when you think about it compared to an Ironman, and like you have to be ready to go on the 70.3. If you're trying to be competitive, you're trying to fight with the front of the field, you have to be ready to go. and this was a conversation we had way back when I was living in Kansas. So like one of the first 50 podcasts, when we had Steve Magnus on, was we talked about keeping that little bit of tension in your legs. Most people want to shell the intensity and they lose all that snap and they kind of get flat. You can't afford flat on a race like a 70.3, because if you do, then it's going to take you so long to get warmed up, to get your legs underneath you, to get that tension back, that by then it's too late. You can still have a great race, but if you're trying to fight for the front of the field, you lose it. So when you're tapering, yeah, you lower volume a little bit, and you also lower intensity, but you got to keep it. You got to keep something, especially for athletes um, who don't swim a lot or are very new to swimming. Most athletes that I've come across just throw swimming out the window. They're like, one swim this week's probably good, and then they get a race and they have no feel for the water. Swim fitness goes fairly quickly. I've found that it goes quicker than all the other ones combined. And you also lose your feel for the water. So you need to keep swimming in there. You need to keep it frequent. You need to keep it 3-4 times a week if that's where you're already at. If you're not, try to do your best to work up to that. But you got to keep it there, and you still got to swim hard. If you have the fitness, trained well enough and hard enough and been consistent enough, then there's nothing that's going to be any different. Like, you don't get a ton of days off. Like, an easy day is usually better. Like, this athlete has no days off this week, and then next week they had one day off, and that's just for travel to San Juan. Everything else, Monday of next week, so race week, still intervals. Tuesday's an easy ride. Wednesday, intervals on the run, intervals on the swim. Day off Thursday for travel. Friday, run, intervals. Saturday, bike with some pickups, and then some accelerations, open water, and then hammer it out and race. But it's about staying sharp. It's not about getting lazy. It's not about getting lethargic. You do want to rest. You want to make sure you're feeling. But if you've been training at a level and you've been doing 14, 15, 16 hours a week to get ready, then you are going to be recovering if you're doing 9 to 10 hours, because your body will have compensated and adapted to prepare itself for the same 15, 16, 17-hour load to do again this week. And instead of having that, now you're dropping it 6 hours below what it's now prepared for. And then on top of that, you were doing it 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row without recovery. So now you're shedding all that fatigue, and then the goal again is to get race ready and to feel really, really good. And because you want to keep that feeling and that thought of, this is what I have on race, this is what I can do. Most people taper so long that the previous fitness that they had going into the taper, they have no recollection and no ability to actually govern what they have, because it's so far removed, because they've gotten so lazy with their taper that they're like, I just feel fat and happy. And they have no idea how to now govern or gauge the fitness that they've worked so hard to build up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
Hopefully that was it. Hopefully that was informative enough to bring people back that probably hate me now for saying you don't ride anywhere inside. But I love you guys. I love you.
that's my favorite, man. I do love that. But you don't.
You don't go anywhere. Like, stop it. I mean, you just don't go anywhere. Just say
It's
I
such a
rode.
weird thing, man. Like, okay, so I've been riding because the roads are really jacked around here. So today, I usually ride over at the lab. I don't ride on roads a lot when I ride around here, but I got my mountain bike out the other day and the last 2 days, and I've been riding the streets, and they have all these crazy bike paths or bike lanes now on the roads where they're in between cars and all this weird stuff. And as I'm driving, I'm like, this is so messed up. Um, but riding it was actually nice. It feels safer out there these days. So I don't know. They must be doing something right. But the point being is, it's hard to get out and ride a lot, I think, for a lot of people because of the dangers and stuff like that. And but there's, it's just amazing when you see somebody, like bike handling is the most underrated part of cycling, on courses like you're saying. It's like you're riding this, virtual course, and there's riders out there, but they're not real riders. And like you said, the minute you get on a course and there's hundreds of people around you passing and screaming at you and dropping bottles and all kinds of stuff like that, it adds it. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with it, but I would imagine that adds loads of stress to some people.
think about it. Like this exact thought crossed my mind yesterday. I was meeting with, we had a meeting over at the place where our hub and our facility is being built, and the broker that we're using was talking about she went skiing this last weekend and she hated it because she was taking her daughters to go ski, and she hated the experience because there were so many people there that had no idea how to ski. It was dangerous
Mm-hmm.
because they weren't holding their lines, they weren't going they were supposed to, and it's made for a very stressful experience. And I was like, welcome to the bike course at Ironman. Like that is 100% it. You take 2,500 people and you put them on max like 112-mile stretch of road, which isn't usually the case. Usually it's like loops with hills and turns and pavements and potholes and aid stations, and 90% of them have been riding inside all year long, not working on any handling, anything that has to be a snap decision. Tell me that's not going to like it'd be like it's like taking an introvert who works at home and has no like who never has to work or touch or talk to or be surrounded by people at all, and then throw them in the middle of Times Square at New Year's Eve and see how that works out. No, they're going to be like stressed out to the max. They're not going to have any idea what to do because the stress level is going to be out the roof. That is the 70.3 Ironman bike course. And this is going to continue to grow, and the courses are going to continue to be harder to navigate, and you have to be more cautious because you have to prepare for people to not know, not to know, but to not know. Can you imagine? And obviously, like this is a far off example, but when you see the riders in the Tour de France, like they ride like a half centimeter behind each other, east, west, and north and south. They're just in the peloton. They're just like they're sandwiched in there. They all know they can bike handle. And they all know they're going to stay their line. They have all that trust and faith. And in a 70.3 or any triathlon you go to, when you come passing somebody, you have to like yell 10 feet behind them and let them know they're coming. And then once you yell, you need to be prepared for them to obviously swerve left because they're going to look left. And
They
then
go, huh?
most athletes when they look left, they do that like sudden like like quick like jerk move because they get scared because they're not used to like holding a line and keeping things taut. They like jerk, and then they obviously jerk left because most athletes when they ride, if they look left, like if you're sitting in the car right now and you look left, your shoulder goes with you, and if your shoulder and your arms go with you, guess what? So do your handlebars. They don't know to like keep their hands pointed and pointed out. So it is. I don't know how I got there either, but hey, it's a good lesson for you. Oh yeah, you go out back to riding inside. But it's just get out and this time of year especially. I understand. I'm a huge advocate for riding inside during the week because I think it's the best return on your investment. You get a lot of hard work in and save a ton of time, and that's crucial and super important for most athletes who have jobs, have families, have kids. They want to be responsible with their time. It is. It's 100% the best use of your time to hop on the trainer Tuesdays, Thursdays, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever day it is you do your bike workouts. Do them inside, save that time. Then use that extra time you've hopefully banked with your family to get outside on the weekend, because now it's starting to get there. There are times you can get outside. You can get outside and ride long. You can get outside and do those things. Get out, and don't be surprised if you get tired quicker in those first few rides because you got the wind, you got the elements, you got terrain that you have to make decisions on. You can't just hop on the same, Zwift Alpe d'Huez course that you've now memorized and know exactly what's going on, and you don't have to ski or steer at all or gear change or do anything, and your water bottles are stacked on the table beside you. Everything is perfect. Well, now you have to actually think. It's going to take more time and energy, so be prepared for that. Be prepared for that mental and emotional energy to be sucked in with watching out for cars, making sure you're going the right way, making sure you're navigating the wind. It's going to be actually, yeah, there's wind in your face. Now you have to worry about how you're going to shift. How's your bike position? There's just so many things to take into account. So get outside as much as you can, as early as you can, to get prepared for that and kind of let the environmental changes that are required and the mental and emotional stressors that are required for riding outside, let them soak in, let them adapt over hopefully a few weeks before you finally hit your A race. So you'll be prepared to get out there and feel comfortable from this word go, and not feel like, listen, let's be honest, so many athletes that get out on a 70.3 Ironman course are terrified. They won't say this, they won't want to say it, but they're terrified. They're worried they're going to wreck because they're not confident in their bike handling skills, or they're confident in their bike handling skills and they're worried about other people. That's not what we want for our sport. That's not what we want for you as an athlete. That's not how you want for your progression, or how you look at the fun that is cycling, that is getting out on your bike and having a great time and riding with people that you trust, riding with people that'll, teach you the ropes. Get outside, enjoy. Don't let fear drive you to not being able to experience the thing you want to experience, or being prepared for race day. You can't live your training life in a bubble and expect to perform well in the real world. That's just not how it works.
I agree, man. You got to get out there. There's always, I think most people now have alternatives for either if it's a greenway or bike path or something, or most cities kind of have that sort of stuff, or like um, low traveled roads or whatever. And it's one of those things where I think that a lot of people probably get out on the weekends and do their longer rides. And I think it's a time where, especially if you're not used to it, you just have to ride, just like you said, that thing about getting outside is just so massive. Haven't been out yet either, and except the last few days on my mountain bike, and it's unbelievable how much more it takes out of you. There's like just to be riding with elements and cars around and people and all that, and that fresh air that you're not used to kind of, I think, beats you
Thank
down a little bit.
goodness.
It's good for you, but I think it gets, it's sort of oxygen. I don't know the science of that either, but it seems like whenever my first workouts outside like that really kind of wipe me out big time, and I feel like it's like oxygen overload or some kind of thing. But um, yeah, and like it sounds silly, but find a parking lot and work on turns and stuff like that because
Thank you. There
you
is
know
nothing wrong with honing your skills. Nothing. Like ITU athletes practice on cones still to get ready for race day, because it's about precision, it's about bike handling, it's about staying upright.
yeah, it's what I'm saying. I mean, luckily I have that old airport here. It's a mile loop. I just go around that thing. There's probably parking lots out there that aren't used, and it's just keep going in a circle, and that really helps my handling. You get used to going a little faster on the curves, and it's a familiarity level that you need to kind of get with before you get on the course. Start freaking out and practice bottles, all that stuff, drinking. And it's so weird. A lot of people I still know they have to kind of almost pull over and drink. You don't want to do
No, you don't want to do that. What else? I feel like I burst a lot of bubbles today, and I didn't really want to do that, but hopefully it was informative.
that. Well, I don't know. It kind of morphed into taper a little bit, and I think I think there was some good info in there. There's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I mean, I am, hey, we tell you, we just lay it out there. I know a lot of it's probably not what you want to hear, but it's all, hopefully it's all applicable to what you want to do. Some of them are kind of hard truths, but that, hey, we're not, we want to be like your parents when I tell you the hard truths. We want to be supportive, but sometimes being supportive is about holding you accountable. This is not you're going to, PR every race for the rest of your life if you use these 6 methods, and you also use this discount code to purchase a special fuel from our sponsor. That's not our podcast, but we love you. We want you to have a happy and healthy, sustainable triathlon career, or in any of your endurance endeavors, and we want you to do that for as long as you can. And we hope our podcast has some kind of part in that, and we want to help you, actually just be able to cut out the BS that's out there. There's a lot of BS out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and we want to make it clean, and want to cut it that way so you can hopefully absorb it and take it in and apply it to your own self, in your own life, in your own training, and have you come out in a better position than you would before. So that's what we do, and we do. We honestly, we do. We love our listeners. We appreciate the time they give us and the feedback, and for being a part of something like the Crushing Iron Facebook group. That is really awesome. We do our best, and we appreciate all of the support.
Thanks for the tough love today, man.
Yeah. Well, if you have any hate mail, you can send them to Mike. He's at crushingiron@gmail.com. My email is currently disabled. I'll be out of the office till May. No. Love you all. But yeah, you can reach Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me directly, C26coach@gmail.com. Peruse our website. It's C26Triathlon.com. It's got all things camps, coaching, and community. It's a great place that highlights the athletes we work with and all the wonderful things that they do and have done. And hey, we'll be back on Monday, better than ever, with more sunshine, rainbows, and hard truths.
All right, man, that sounds great.
Sure it does.
It does. One thing I had here, I'm debating on whether I should read it or not.
Oh,
Our favorite C26 athlete or physicist, Anthony Downey.
oh boy, don't read it. We've already lost listeners on this one, so don't read
Yeah,
that.
this
I saw
physicist
way over.
perspective of recovery. It's hilarious.
Yeah, don't read it. We've lost enough listeners.
It's in the closed Facebook group, so come on in and join it. Join up.
Get this straight. The only people left listening are our moms. Happy birthday, Ann. Happy birthday, Mom. We love you. And
Dude, love you.
Thanks for supporting us when this podcast goes bankrupt one day.
All right, buddy. I will catch you on Monday.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.